The banging on my front door jolted me awake at 3:15 in the morning. I fumbled for my glasses on the nightstand, my heart hammering against my ribs. Nobody comes knocking at that hour with good news. "Who is it?" I called out, wrapping my robe around my nightgown as I shuffled toward the door. "It's me, Ma. Open up." The slurred voice of my son-in-law Marcus came through the door, followed by more pounding. "My name is Lorraine Wilson. I'm 58 years old, and I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life by opening that door." I peered through the peephole to see Marcus swaying on my front porch, his eyes unfocused, his usually neat button-down shirt untucked and stained. I sighed, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened the door just as he was about to knock again, his fist nearly connecting with my face. "Marcus, what on earth are you doing here at this hour?" I asked, stepping back to let him in. The smell of whiskey wafted off him, strong enough to make my eyes water. "Need to borrow your car," he mumbled, stumbling into my living room and dropping heavily onto my floral sofa. "Just for a day or two." I crossed my arms over my chest. "You're drunk, Marcus. You're not driving anywhere tonight, especially not my car." "Come on, Ma," he wheedled, using that nickname I'd always disliked. I wasn't his mother, just his wife's mother, but he'd been calling me that since he married my Denise 6 years ago. "My truck's in the shop, and I got this job interview tomorrow morning. It's just till I get back on my feet." I hesitated. Marcus had been laid off from the bank 3 months ago, and things had been tense between him and Denise ever since. My daughter was working overtime at the hospital to keep their bills paid, and I knew she was worried sick about their mortgage. "Where's Denise?" I asked. "Why can't you use her car?" Marcus scowled. "She's on night shift, took her car. Come on, I need this. You want me to get this job, don't you?" I sighed, rubbing my temples where a headache was forming. This wasn't the first time Marcus had shown up asking for help, and it probably wouldn't be the last. But I'd raised my daughter to stand by family in times of need, and like it or not, Marcus was family now. "You can take it in the morning, when you're sober," I said firmly. "You can sleep on the couch tonight, and I'll drive you to your interview myself." But Marcus was already shaking his head. "Need to prepare first. Got some stuff at home I need to review before the interview." He leaned forward, trying to appear more sober than he was. "Look, I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm trying here. I'm really trying." I thought about Denise, about how desperately she wanted her marriage to work, about the hopeful way she still talked about Marcus despite everything. "Fine." I relented, reaching for my purse on the side table. "But I want it back tomorrow. I've got church in the morning and book club in the afternoon." Relief washed over his face as I handed him my keys. "Thanks, Ma. You're a lifesaver. I'll have it back before you know it." A feeling of unease settled in my stomach as he took the keys, but I pushed it aside. What was the worst that could happen? It was just a car, and he was family. I walked him to the door, made him promise again to bring it back the next day, and watched as he stumbled down the front walk to my mint green Buick LaCrosse. The car I'd bought myself as a retirement present after 35 years of teaching fifth graders. "Drive careful," I called after him, already regretting my decision. He waved without looking back, slid into the driver's seat, and drove away. I didn't know it then, but I wouldn't see my car again for nearly 6 months. The next morning, I woke to my phone ringing. It was Denise, her voice tight with exhaustion after her night shift. "Mama, did you let Marcus take your car?" I sat up in bed, glancing at the clock. 8:30. "Yes, he said he had a job interview today. He promised to bring it back this morning." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, then a soft sigh. "Mama, there's no job interview. He got fired from his last job. He didn't get laid off. He was drinking on the job. I found empty bottles in his desk when I was cleaning." My stomach dropped. "What?" But he said, I know what he said. Denise's voice cracked. He says a lot of things. I'm sorry, Mama. I'll make sure you get your car back. But she didn't. Neither of us did. Not that day, not the next week. Marcus wasn't answering his phone, and when Denise went home, his clothes were gone from the closet, along with some of her jewelry and the emergency cash they kept in a kitchen drawer. I think he's gone back to gambling, Denise confessed, when she came over 3 days later, her eyes red, rimmed from crying. He's done this before. Disappeared for days, came back broke, but he's never taken a car before. I held my daughter as she sobbed on my couch, anger building inside me, not just at Marcus for taking advantage, but at myself for enabling him. I'd seen the signs, the nervous energy, the too smooth excuses, the late-night visits, but I'd looked the other way because he was family. We need to report the car stolen, I said finally, stroking Denise's hair. It's been 3 days. She pulled back, alarmed. Mama, no, he's still my husband. He'll bring it back. He always comes back. And what if he wrecks it? What if he hurts someone? That car is in my name, Denise. I'm responsible for it. Just give him a few more days. She pleaded. Please, Mama. I can't handle the police getting involved right now. My nursing supervisor already asked why I've been so distracted at work. Against my better judgment, I agreed to wait. 1 week turned into 2, then a month. I took the bus to get groceries and had my neighbor Edwin drive me to church on Sundays. I canceled my book club attendance and made excuses to my friends, too embarrassed to admit I'd been foolish enough to hand over my car keys to my alcoholic, gambling-addicted son-in-law. Meanwhile, Denise threw herself into her work, picking up extra shifts to cover the bills Marcus had left behind. I worried about her constantly, watching her grow thinner and more withdrawn with each passing week, but still she wouldn't agree to report the car stolen. He's still calling sometimes, she admitted when I pressed her. Late at night, saying he's sorry, that he's coming home soon. He says he's got a big win coming, enough to fix everything. Gambling money won't fix anything, I said. And if he's still calling you, ask him where my car is. I did. He says it's safe, that he'll bring it back when he comes home. I snorted in disbelief. And you believe him? Tears filled her eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore, Mama. It was Edwin, my neighbor, who finally pushed me to take action. He'd been driving me to church and the grocery store for weeks. His kindness a bright spot in an otherwise difficult time. A retired postal worker who'd lost his wife to cancer 3 years earlier, Edwin had become a good friend, always ready with a corny joke or a word of encouragement. Lorraine, he said one Sunday afternoon as we drove back from church, I've got to say something, and I hope you won't take it the wrong way. I braced myself, smoothing the skirt of my church dress over my knees. What is it? You need to report that car stolen. It's been almost 2 months. This isn't right what that young man is doing to you. I sighed, looking out the window at the familiar streets of the neighborhood where I'd lived for over 30 years. I know, but Denise is still protecting him. She thinks he's coming back. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, Edwin said, his hand steady on the wheel of his sensible Honda. But that doesn't change the fact that he took your property without permission and hasn't returned it. That's theft, plain and simple. It's complicated, I said weakly. He's family. Edwin pulled into my driveway and turned to look at me, his kind face serious. Family doesn't take advantage like this. What if he hurts someone in that car? What if there's an accident? Lorraine, you could be liable. His words struck home, articulating the fear that had been gnawing at me for weeks. What if Marcus did cause an accident? What if someone got hurt? The car was registered in my name. The insurance was in my name. You're right, I admitted. I need to report it. Want me to go with you to the police station tomorrow? He offered. I smiled, grateful for his support. Thank you, Edwin, I'd appreciate that. That evening, I called Denise to tell her my decision. As expected, she was upset. Mama, please don't do this. He'll be humiliated if the police get involved. It could ruin any chance of him getting another job. He should have thought of that before he took my car, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I love you, Denise, and I want to support you, but this has gone on long enough. I'm reporting it stolen tomorrow. Then I'll tell them I gave him permission to use it, she threatened, her voice rising. I'll say I had your keys because I was watching your house while you were away. Why would you lie for him? I asked, hurt and confusion washing over me. After everything he's done? Because I still love him, she cried. And he's still my husband, and I took vows, Mama. For better or worse, remember, you're the one who taught me that family stands by family. Not when they're hurting you, I said quietly. Not when they're taking advantage. That's not love, Denise. You don't understand, she said, her voice breaking. You've been alone since Daddy died. You don't know what it's like to try to keep a marriage together. Her words stung, bringing tears to my eyes. My husband, Robert, had died of a heart attack 12 years ago, leaving me a widow at 46. I'd raised Denise on my own after that, working extra tutoring jobs to put her through nursing school. You're right, I said after a moment. I don't know what it's like to try to keep a marriage together with someone who steals and lies. Your father never would have done that to me. A heavy silence fell between us. I'm reporting the car stolen tomorrow, I said eventually. I'm sorry if that makes things harder for you and Marcus, but I need to protect myself. Fine, she said coldly. Do what you want. You always do. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me with the phone in my hand and a knot in my stomach. In all the years of raising her, through teenage rebellion and college stress and early career struggles, Denise and I had never had a fight like this. I sat on my couch in the growing darkness, my empty house suddenly feeling emptier than ever. The next morning, Edwin picked me up as promised, and we drove to the police station together. I was nervous, my hands fidgeting with the strap of my purse as we waited to speak with an officer. When it was finally my turn, I recounted the story to a young police officer who looked barely older than my former students. So let me get this straight, the officer said, typing notes into his computer. You gave your son-in-law the keys to your vehicle approximately 2 months ago, and he hasn't returned it? That's right, I confirmed. He said he would return it the next day, but he didn't. And you're just now reporting it missing? He raised an eyebrow, his skepticism obvious. I felt a flush of embarrassment. My daughter, his wife, asked me to wait. She thought he would bring it back. I see. The officer's tone made it clear that he didn't think much of my decision to wait so long. And can you describe the vehicle? I gave him all the details of my Buick, the mint green color, the year, the license plate number, the VIN from my registration. Any distinguishing features or damage? There's a small dent on the rear bumper, right side, and a St. Brass ends forely. Christopher medal hanging from the rear view mirror. The medal had been Robert's, a gift from his mother when he first learned to drive. I'd kept it all these years, transferring it from car to car, a small piece of him always with me. The officer finished taking my statement, then handed me a case number. We'll enter this into the system. If any patrol cars spot the vehicle, they'll report it. But honestly, ma'am, after 2 months, the chances of recovery are… I understand, I interrupted, not wanting to hear the statistics. Thank you for your help. As Edwin and I left the police station, I felt both relieved and defeated. I'd done what needed to be done, but it felt like too little, too late. You did the right thing, Edwin reassured me as we walked to his car. Whatever happens now, at least you've protected yourself legally. I nodded, trying to believe him. I just wish I hadn't trusted Marcus in the first place. We all make mistakes when it comes to family, he said gently. The important thing is learning from them. On the drive home, I stared out the window, watching the world go by from the passenger seat instead of behind the wheel. I'd always valued my independence, the freedom to go where I wanted when I wanted. Now I was dependent on others, my mobility limited by Marcus's selfishness. The weeks that followed were difficult. Denise barely spoke to me, responding to my texts with one-word answers and finding excuses not to come over. I missed her desperately, but I held firm in my decision. Meanwhile, I adjusted to life without a car, learning bus routes, accepting rides from friends, and occasionally splurging on rideshare services when necessary. Edwin continued to help, driving me to church and sometimes inviting me over for dinner. His kindness was a comfort, though I was careful not to lean on him too much. I'd spent 12 years learning to stand on my own after Robert died, and I was determined not to become dependent on another person, no matter how kind. One evening in late July, nearly 3 months after Marcus had taken my car, I was sitting on my front porch enjoying the summer breeze when a police car pulled up in front of my house. My heart leaped into my throat as I watched an officer step out and approach my gate. "Mrs. Wilson?" he called, consulting a small notebook. I stood, smoothing my pants nervously. "Yes, that's me." "I'm Officer Daniels. Do you own a 2016 Buick LaCrosse, mint green, license plate number GHT 493? "Yes," I said eagerly, stepping down from the porch. "Have you found it?" The officer's expression was carefully neutral. "Ma'am, your vehicle was involved in an incident earlier today. It was found abandoned near the Riverfront Casino downtown." My stomach dropped. "An incident? Was anyone hurt?" "No, ma'am, nothing like that. The vehicle was parked illegally and was about to be towed when patrol ran the plates and saw it was reported stolen. It's been impounded at the city lot." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by confusion. Abandoned? Was there anyone with it? A man named Marcus Jenkins? Officer Daniels shook his head. No one was with the vehicle when it was found. There was no key in the ignition, and there are signs that someone may have been living in it for some time. There are personal items inside. The image of Marcus living in my car, sleeping in the back seat, maybe driving from casino to casino, made me feel ill. But at least the car had been found. "Can I get it back?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am. You'll need to come to the impound lot with your ID, proof of ownership, and there will be towing and storage fees. I can give you the address and their hours." I nodded, taking the information slip he offered. "Thank you, officer." After he left, I sat back down on the porch swing, my mind racing. I needed to call Denise, but I dreaded another argument. Still, she deserved to know that her husband's car borrowing spree had apparently ended, and that he was likely on foot somewhere in the city. I dialed her number, half expecting it to go to voicemail, but she answered on the third ring. "Mama." Her voice was cautious, guarded. "Denise, the police just came by. They found my car." There was a sharp intake of breath. "Where? Is Marcus okay?" The car was abandoned near the Riverfront Casino. There was no sign of Marcus, but the officer said it looks like someone's been living in it. She was quiet for a long moment. "Is the car damaged?" "I don't know yet. I have to go to the impound lot to get it." Another pause. "Do you want me to go with you?" The olive branch in her question brought tears to my eyes. I'd like that very much. "I'll pick you up tomorrow after my shift. Around 4? "That would be perfect. Thank you, Denise." After we hung up, I called Edwin to share the news, and then settled in for a restless night, wondering what condition my car would be in, and despite everything, whether Marcus was safe. The next afternoon, Denise arrived as promised, looking tired but determined. She hugged me briefly before we got into her car, the first physical contact we'd had in weeks. "I'm sorry for what I said before," she said as she drove. "About you being alone and not understanding. That was cruel." "It's okay," I said, though the memory of her words still stung. We were both upset. "It's not okay," she insisted. "You've always been there for me, for us, and Marcus took advantage of that." I glanced at her profile, noticing the dark circles under her eyes, the tightness around her mouth. "Have you heard from him?" She nodded, keeping her eyes on the road. "2 days ago, he called in the middle of the night, talking about a big win that didn't pan out. Said he needed money for a bus ticket home." Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. I told him no. Pride swelled in my chest. That must have been hard. "Hardest thing I've ever done," she admitted. "But I'm done enabling him, Mama. I've been doing it for years, making excuses, covering for him. No more." I reached across to squeeze her hand. "I'm proud of you, Denise." She gave me a small, sad smile. "I should have listened to you months ago." We drove the rest of the way in companionable silence, both lost in our thoughts. When we arrived at the impound lot, a gruff attendant led us through rows of vehicles until we reached my once pristine Buick. I gasped when I saw it. The mint green paint was dirty and scratched. One headlight was cracked, and the tires looked worn. Through the windows, I could see trash scattered across the seats, clothing items stuffed into the footwells, and what looked like fast food wrappers everywhere. "Oh, Mama," Denise whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "I'm so sorry." I swallowed hard, approaching the car with trepidation. The attendant unlocked it for me, and the smell that wafted out made me step back, a combination of stale food, unwashed clothes, and something I couldn't identify. "You can decide not to claim it," the attendant informed me, clearly used to such reactions. "But you'll still be responsible for the towing and storage fees, and eventually the disposal fee if it goes unclaimed." I shook my head. "No, it's my car. I'm taking it back." I steeled myself and began to examine the interior more closely. The passenger seat was reclined all the way back, with a dirty blanket bunched up on it. The back seat was piled with clothes, some of which I recognized as Marcus's, others that looked unfamiliar. Fast food bags and cups littered every available space. As I reached to move some of the trash from the driver's seat, something caught my eye: a small leather-bound book wedged between the seat and the center console. I pulled it out, recognizing it instantly as my address book, which I'd kept in the glove compartment. Curious, I flipped it open. Several pages had been torn out, pages that had contained the addresses and phone numbers of my friends, my church members, people from my life. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Denise," I said, my voice tight, "check the glove compartment for the registration and insurance card." She leaned in, grimacing at the smell, and popped open the glove box. "It's empty, Mama." Of course it was. I closed my eyes briefly, understanding washing over me. Marcus hadn't just taken my car for transportation. He'd taken my identity, my registration, my insurance information, possibly my personal contacts. Who knew what he had done with that information over the past 3 months? I turned to the attendant, who was watching us with barely concealed impatience. "I need to check the trunk." He shrugged. "Go ahead." The trunk release button didn't work, so I used the key the attendant had given me to open it manually. The space was mostly empty, except for a few more clothing items, some empty liquor bottles, and my heart sank. The tire iron and emergency kit that should have been secured to the side of the trunk were gone. "What are you looking for, Mama?" Denise asked, peering over my shoulder. "My spare tire and jack," I said, bending to lift the trunk floor panel. The spare tire was still there, but the jack was missing. I shook my head in disbelief. "He's taken everything of value." We completed the paperwork to reclaim the car, paying the towing and storage fees that took a painful bite out of my savings. The attendant gave me a small box containing the personal items that had been inventoried when the car was impounded, some loose change, a few pens, receipts, and, thankfully, my St. Christopher medal that had somehow remained on the rear-view mirror throughout the ordeal. Denise insisted on following me home in her car, not trusting the condition of the Buick after months of neglect. The drive was nerve-wracking. The steering pulled to the right, there was a worrying rattle from the engine, and the air conditioning blew only hot air despite the July heat. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands were shaking, and not just from the stress of driving the neglected vehicle. I was angry. Genuinely, deeply angry, in a way I hadn't allowed myself to be before. This wasn't just about a borrowed car not returned. Marcus had violated my trust, potentially stolen my identity, and left my property damaged and degraded. Denise parked behind me and came to help me out of the car, her face tight with concern. "We'll get it cleaned up, Mama. I'll pay for it." I shook my head. "This isn't your responsibility, Denise." "It is," she insisted. "He's my husband. I brought him into your life." "And he made his own choices," I countered, leading her into the house. "Choices he needs to be held accountable for." Inside, we sat at my kitchen table, the afternoon sun streaming through the window as I made us both iced tea. The familiar routine was comforting, a return to normalcy after months of disruption. "I'm going to file for divorce," Denise said suddenly, her hands wrapped around her glass. "I've already talked to a lawyer." I looked at my daughter, seeing the determination in her eyes despite the pain. "Are you sure that's what you want?" She nodded. "I kept thinking he would change, that I could help him change." She took a shaky breath. "But he doesn't want to change, and I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep him warm." I reached across the table to squeeze her hand, proud of her strength even as my heart ached for her pain. "Whatever you decide, I'm here for you." "I know, Mama, you always have been." She hesitated, then asked, "What are you going to do about the car?" I sighed, considering the question. "Get it cleaned first, then take it to a mechanic to see what needs fixing. After that," I paused, a thought forming. "I think I might need to check my credit report. If he took my registration and insurance card, who knows what else he might have done." Denise's eyes widened. "You think he might have stolen your identity?" "I don't know, but I need to find out." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I took the car to be professionally cleaned, then to my trusted mechanic, who gave me a long list of necessary repairs: worn brake pads, damaged suspension, oil that hadn't been changed in months, a radiator leak, and more. The estimated cost made me wince, but I had no choice. I needed my car back in working order. Meanwhile, I checked my credit report and discovered 2 credit cards had been opened in my name shortly after Marcus took my car. The cards were maxed out, with charges at casinos, liquor stores, hotels, and restaurants. I filed a police report for identity theft, spent hours on the phone with credit card companies disputing the charges, and tried to shake the feeling of violation that followed me everywhere. Denise was dealing with her own fallout. Her divorce filing had been met with angry, pleading phone calls from Marcus, alternating between threats and promises to change. She stayed with me for a few nights when the calls became too much, then found a small apartment closer to the hospital where she worked. She was moving forward, determinedly reclaiming her life. One evening in late August, as I was sorting through a pile of mail, including yet another letter from a collection agency that I would have to dispute, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole, expecting perhaps Edwin or one of my church friends, but instead found myself staring at Marcus. My heart raced, anger and fear battling within me. He looked terrible, thinner than before, with several days' worth of stubble, wearing a wrinkled shirt that had once been crisp and professional. For a moment, I considered not answering, but then straightened my shoulders and opened the door, keeping the security chain in place. What do you want, Marcus? My voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. He flinched at my tone, then put on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Hey, Ma. I came to apologize about the car. Things got a little out of hand, but I'm back now, and I want to make it right. Make it right? I repeated incredulously. You stole my car, Marcus. You opened credit cards in my name. You left me stranded for months while you gambled and drank. How exactly do you plan to make it right? His smile faltered. Look, I know I messed up, but I'm getting help now. I'm going to meetings. I just need a place to stay for a few days until Denise calms down and lets me come home. I stared at him in disbelief. Denise filed for divorce. She's moved out of your house, and you're not staying here. Anger flashed across his face. Come on, Ma, we're family. You always said family helps family. You stopped being family when you stole from me, I said firmly. And don't call me Ma. I'm not your mother. Fine, he snapped, his facade of contrition disappearing. Be that way. But I need money, and you owe me. I owe you? I was so shocked I nearly laughed. For what? For all the times I helped around here. Fixed your garbage disposal, mowed your lawn, all that. He leaned closer to the door, his voice dropping. And if you don't help me out, maybe I'll have to tell the police I had permission to use those credit cards. Your word against mine. Ice formed in my veins. Are you threatening me, Marcus? Just stating facts, he said with a shrug. So how about it? $2,000 should get me back on my feet. Small price to pay to keep your credit clean, right? I closed the door in his face, my hands shaking as I engaged all the locks. Then I picked up my phone and called the police, reporting the threat and attempted extortion. When the officers arrived 20 minutes later, Marcus was gone, but I filed another report, adding it to the growing paper trail. That night, I barely slept, jumping at every sound outside my house. The next morning, I called a security company and had new locks installed, along with a doorbell camera that would record anyone who came to my door. The expense was significant, but my peace of mind was worth it. I also called Denise, warning her about Marcus's return and his threats. She was quiet for a long moment after I finished speaking. I'm so sorry, Mama, she finally said, her voice thick with tears. I never thought he would go this far. It's not your fault, I assured her, but be careful, he might come to you next. My building has security, she said, and I've already warned them not to let him in. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, staring at the front door with its new locks and feeling like a prisoner in my own home. This wasn't right. This wasn't fair. Marcus had taken enough from Mimi Carr, my sense of security, nearly my credit score. I wasn't going to let him take my peace of mind too. I picked up the phone again and dialed Edwin's number. Can you come over? I asked when he answered. I need your help with something. An hour later, Edwin was sitting at my kitchen table, listening intently as I explained what had happened with Marcus and what I wanted to do next. I need to find out where he's living, I concluded. The police report said he's been staying in a motel out by the highway, but I don't know which one. I need to confront him, make it clear that I won't be intimidated, and that if he comes near me or Denise again, there will be consequences. Edwin frowned, concern written across his kind face. Lorraine, I'm not sure that's a good idea. This man has already shown he's unstable. He could be dangerous. I won't go alone, I assured him. I was hoping you would come with me, and we wouldn't go inside, just talk to him in a public place. Why not let the police handle this? Edwin asked. You filed reports, they can find him. I sighed, trying to articulate the feeling that had been building inside me since I'd reclaimed my damaged car. Because I need to do this for myself. For months, I've been reacting to what Marcus did, reporting the car stolen, disputing credit charges, installing new locks. I've been on the defensive. I need to take back some control. Edwin studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I understand, but we do this carefully. We find out where he is first, then decide the safest way to approach. Thank you, I said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand in gratitude. Together, we formulated a plan. Edwin had a friend who worked in billing at the local hospital who owed him a favor. He would ask if Marcus had listed a current address when he was treated for a minor injury a few weeks earlier, information I hadn't known until Edwin mentioned it, but which made sense given Marcus's disheveled appearance when he'd shown up at my door. While we waited for Edwin's friend to get back to us, I gathered all my documentation, the police reports, the credit card disputes, the repair bills for my car. I wanted to be prepared, to have evidence of every way Marcus had wronged me and Denise, every way he had taken advantage. 2 days later, Edwin's hospital contact came through with an address, not a motel as the police had thought, but a run-down apartment complex on the outskirts of town, known for its month-to-month leases and lack of background checks. Armed with this information, Edwin and I drove to the complex one afternoon, my newly repaired Buick still smelling faintly of the professional cleaning despite the open windows. The apartment complex was a series of 2-story buildings surrounding a central courtyard with a neglected swimming pool, the water a suspicious greenish color. We parked near the office, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Are you sure about this?" Edwin asked, his hand gentle on my arm. I nodded, determination hardening within me. I need to do this, for myself and for Denise. We approached the office together, where a bored-looking manager confirmed that Marcus Jenkins was indeed renting Unit 214 on the second floor of the building across the courtyard. When I explained that he was my son-in-law and had some of my property, the manager shrugged, uninterested in our personal drama. "Just don't cause trouble," he warned, before turning back to his small television. Edwin and I crossed the cracked concrete of the courtyard, passing by the murky swimming pool and a cluster of plastic chairs where a few residents sat smoking, watching us with idle curiosity. The stairwell to the second floor was littered with cigarette butts and empty beer cans, and I gripped the railing tightly as we climbed, my heart pounding in my ears. "Let me do the talking at first," Edwin suggested as we reached the landing, "just in case he reacts badly." I nodded, grateful for his protective instinct, but determined to have my say. We found Unit 214 at the end of the open-air corridor, a faded number sign hanging askew on the door. I could hear music playing inside, something with a heavy bass beat that vibrated through the thin walls. Edwin knocked firmly, the sound barely audible over the music. After a moment, with no response, he knocked again, louder this time. The music suddenly lowered, and I heard movement inside the apartment. "Who is it?" Marcus's voice called out, wary and slightly slurred even in the middle of the afternoon. "Marcus, it's Lorraine Wilson," I called back, ignoring Edwin's signal to let him speak first. "We need to talk." There was a long pause, then the sound of locks being turned. The door opened a few inches, the security chain still engaged, and Marcus peered out at us. His eyes widened when he saw me, then narrowed suspiciously at Edwin. "Who's this? Your boyfriend?" His tone was mocking, though I could see uncertainty in his bloodshot eyes. "This is my friend Edwin," I said calmly. "We want to talk to you." Marcus snorted. "Nothing to talk about. I already apologized for the car." "That's not enough," I said, my voice firm despite the trembling I felt inside. "You stole my identity, ran up debt in my name, and then tried to extort money from me. This conversation isn't optional, Marcus." His gaze shifted between Edwin and me, calculating. "Fine," he finally said. Meet me at the coffee shop across the street in 10 minutes, not letting strangers into my place. Before I could respond, he closed the door. I heard the music volume increase again, effectively ending the conversation. Edwin and I exchanged glances. At least it's a public place, he said with a shrug. That's probably better anyway. We walked back down the stairs and across the street to a small, dingy coffee shop that had seen better days. The teenager behind the counter barely looked up from her phone as we ordered 2 coffees and took a table near the window where we could watch for Marcus. What if he doesn't show up? I wondered aloud, wrapping my hands around the chipped mug of mediocre coffee. Then we'll know he's not interested in resolving this, Edwin replied pragmatically. And you can decide what to do next. To my surprise, Marcus did appear exactly 10 minutes later, pushing through the door of the coffee shop with a nervous energy that suggested he'd been hoping we would have given up and left. He ordered coffee at the counter, then approached our table, sliding into a chair across from us. So, he said, not meeting my eyes, what do you want? I placed the folder I'd brought on the table between us and opened it. I want you to see exactly what you've done, I said, removing the first documenta bill from the mechanic for nearly $1,800 in repairs to my car. This is what it cost to fix the damage you did to my Buick. Marcus glanced at the paper, then looked away. I was going to pay you back for that. With what money? I asked. The money you stole using these? I placed the credit card statements on the table, the ones showing charges he'd made in my name. Or were you planning to use the $2,000 you tried to extort from me? A flash of shame crossed his face, quickly replaced by defensiveness. Look, I was in a bad place. I needed help. And instead of asking for help, you stole from the people who cared about you, I said, my voice steady. From me, from Denise. Denise doesn't understand, he muttered. I was this close to a big win. Would have fixed everything. There is no big win, Marcus, I said, leaning forward. There never was. That's the lie you tell yourself to justify the gambling, the drinking, the stealing. He flinched at my words, then glared at Edwin. You don't need to be here for this. This is family business. I asked him to come, I said firmly. And as I told you before, you stopped being family when you stole from me. Marcus's expression darkened. So what do you want? You want me to crawl, beg for forgiveness, write you a check I can't cash? What? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I needed to say. I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. The police reports have been filed for the stolen car, the identity theft, and the attempted extortion. I've disputed the credit card charges, and the companies are investigating. His eyes widened slightly. You're pressing charges? Against family? Yes, I said simply. And I'm here to tell you that if you come to my house again, if you contact Denise against her wishes, if you make any more threats, I will pursue those charges to the fullest extent possible. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think I'm scared of that? I've got nothing left to lose. That's where you're wrong, I countered. You still have your freedom, for now. Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of genuine fear. You wouldn't. I would, I assured him. And I will, if you don't stop now, if you don't leave us alone. He sat back in his chair, studying me with new eyes, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. The cocky son-in-law who had charmed his way into borrowing my car was gone, replaced by a desperate man facing the consequences of his actions. What do you want me to do? He asked finally, his voice smaller than before. First, you're going to sign this. I pulled out another document from my folder statement I'd written, acknowledging that he had taken my car without permission, opened credit cards in my name without authorization, and attempted to extort money from me. It's not a legal confession, just a record of the truth. Marcus read through the document, then looked up at me. And if I sign this? Then, I'll give you a chance to make things right before I decide whether to press charges. I took out a pen and placed it on the table next to the statement. Your choice. For a long moment, he stared at the paper, his internal struggle playing out across his face. Then, with a resigned sigh, he picked up the pen and signed his name. Now what? He asked, pushing the paper back toward me. Now you start paying me back, I said, taking out a final document. This is a repayment plan. $200 a month until you've covered the cost of the car repairs, the credit card charges, and the security system I had to install because of your threats. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. I don't have that kind of money. Then get a job, I said simply. Any job, fast food, retail, whatever it takes. If you miss a payment, I go straight to the district attorney with the police reports. If you contact Denise against her wishes, same thing. And if I do all this, pay everything back? Then we're done, I said. You go your way, we go ours. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, I'll sign your payment plan, but I need to talk to Denise. She's still my wife. She's filed for divorce. I reminded him. If she wants to talk to you, that's her decision. But you will not pressure her, threaten her, or show up at her apartment unannounced. Marcus signed the payment plan with a defeated expression, then slid the papers back to me. You know, I always thought you were this sweet pushover mother-in-law, he said, a hint of his old smugness returning. Guess I was wrong. Yes, I agreed, gathering the documents and returning them to my folder. You were. As Edwin and I stood to leave, Marcus remained seated, staring into his untouched coffee. The St. Christopher medal, he said suddenly. It's still in the car? I paused, surprised by the question. Yes, it was still on the rear-view mirror when the police found the car. He nodded, not looking up. Good. I knew it was important to you. That's why I didn't pawn it, even when I needed money bad. The statement caught me off guard, a small act of decency amid all the wrongs he had committed. But it wasn't enough to erase everything else. Goodbye, Marcus, I said. I'll expect your first payment in 2 weeks. Edwin and I walked out of the coffee shop and back to my car in silence. Once we were inside, I exhaled deeply, the tension of the confrontation finally releasing. You were amazing in there, Edwin said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. So strong, so clear. I don't feel strong, I admitted, my voice wavering for the first time that day. I feel sad. Sad for Denise, for the marriage she's lost. Sad that it came to this. Of course you do, he said gently. You're a compassionate person. That's different from being a pushover. I started the car, listening to the healthy hum of the engine, restored after Marcus's neglect. Let's go home, I said. I need to call Denise. That evening, I sat on my porch, watching the sunset and thinking about the day's events. I had stood up for myself, set boundaries, demanded respect. It felt good, empowering, and yet there was still a lingering sadness for all that had been lost. My phone rang, and I smiled when I saw Denise's name on the screen. How did it go? She asked as soon as I answered. I had told her my plans to confront Marcus over her initial objections. Better than I expected, I replied, filling her in on the documents he had signed, the payment plan, the boundaries I had set. I can't believe he actually agreed to all that, she said, sounding impressed. He's never accepted responsibility for anything before. I don't know if he's accepted responsibility in his heart, I said honestly, but he's committed to making things right, at least on paper. Do you think he'll follow through? Her voice held both hope and doubt. I don't know, I admitted, but either way, we've taken back control. We're not victims anymore, just waiting to see what he'll do next. Denise was quiet for a moment. He called me this evening, asked if we could talk. My heart skipped a beat. What did you say? I told him I'd think about it, she replied. Maybe meet for coffee next week in public. I still need closure, Mama, even if the divorce goes through as planned. I understand, I said, and I did. Endings were rarely clean and absolute. There were always loose threads, things left unsaid, emotions to process. I'm proud of you, Mama, Denise said suddenly. For standing up to him, for not letting him take advantage anymore. Her words warmed me. I'm proud of us both, I replied. It's not easy to set boundaries with people you care about. After we hung up, I sat watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. My life had changed so much in the months since that night when Marcus knocked on my door at 3:15 in the morning. I had lost trust, lost my sense of security, even temporarily lost my relationship with my daughter, but I had gained something a stronger sense of self, a deeper understanding of my own resilience. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway brought me out of my reflections. It was Edwin, carrying a small plant in a terracotta pot. Thought your porch could use a little color, he said, setting the pot of bright red geraniums on the small table beside me. How are you doing? Better, I said, gesturing for him to join me on the porch swing. Not great, but better. That's all any of us can ask for most days, he replied, settling beside me with a comfortable familiarity that had developed over the months of his kindness. We sat in companionable silence, watching the night deepen around us. My car was parked in the driveway, repaired and clean. My house was secure behind me, with new locks and a camera to protect it. My relationship with Denise was healing. And though there was still uncertainty ahead whether Marcus would keep his promises, how the divorce would proceed, what other damage might yet be discovered, I felt, for the first time in months, like I was on solid ground. What are you thinking about? Edwin asked, his voice gentle in the darkness. I considered the question, then smiled. I'm thinking about tomorrow, about driving to the garden center to get soil for these lovely geraniums, about having lunch with my daughter next week, about moving forward. Edwin nodded, understanding in his eyes. Moving forward sounds good. Yes, I thought. Moving forward, on my own terms, in my own car, with the keys firmly in my possession. Marcus had taken my car, my keys, and temporarily, my freedom. But in the end, I had taken back something more important me: power, my self-respect, and the freedom to chart my own course from here on out. And that no one would ever be able to take from me again.